You are listening to Cool 104.1, and this is Robert Ishoy, your host of Issues with Ishoy. And tonight we are going to discuss a topic that we've already covered back in May, but I have another guest, and I have Terisha, they say that,
Yep.
Driggs, who is an attorney with the Cochise County Courts.
Cochise County Attorney's Office.
Oh, okay.
Yep. My official title is Deputy County Attorney.
All right, Deputy County Attorney. And I am so thankful that you came on. The show we did in May, I'm going to do a little recap first. We did back in May, I had Christina Light on the show, who is also an attorney, but now a private attorney, but she used to work for the court systems.
That's right. She worked for the county attorney's office. She did felony prosecution, and she also covered the Justice Court Precinct 5, which is Sierra Vista.
Okay. And we had a good show. Well, I kind of hit her up with a lot of topics. I'm not going to obviously go back over everything, but just to highlight that show back in May, I did ask her about plea bargaining. She kind of had to correct me a little bit. I was real negative on the plea bargaining, but then she pointed out that there are so many cases that if you didn't have plea bargaining, the courts would literally probably shut down. They wouldn't be able to handle all the cases if they all went to court.
Absolutely. If they all went to trial, it would overwhelm the system.
Yeah. So I think that's important. And of course, you hear on TV the cases where people, spent years in prison falsely, but we have to remember TV.
Right. Yeah. And there are projects like the Innocence Projects, and there are great programs like that do research into those types of allegations. And so it does happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I don't think it happens as often as TV makes it sound.
I would agree.
So, but the other thing I kind of hit her up with, talked about plea bargaining. I also brought up about the Constitution, that it clearly states that we have a right to a jury for all cases, and yet there are some things that we don't have the right to a jury for. So I had to do a little research on my own. She said that decision had been made a long time ago. Actually, it was the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made multiple decisions. I think the first one was in 1968, and then followed by other cases where they said that petty offenses are excluded from the right to a jury trial, anything 6 months or less.
Right. So any felony offense is going to be a situation where a defendant has a right to a jury trial. They can certainly waive that right, and that's part of like plea bargaining, but they can also choose to have a bench trial without having a jury present. And that's where the judge is the finder of facts.
Right.
There are also certain misdemeanors that require a jury trial, or you can have a jury trial, such as a DUI offense, reckless driving. So certain misdemeanor offenses will be eligible for jury trials, while others may not be.
Okay. I also read that this all varies from state to state as well.
It does. So in Arizona, it's really interesting because in Arizona, if you are going to receive a sentence of less than 30 years, then there only needs to be an 8-person jury. But if you're going to receive a sentence that's over 30 years, then you have the right to a 12-person jury.
Okay. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that the Constitution doesn't state the size of a jury.
Right.
It just says you have a right to a jury. We came up with the idea of 12 and 8 in different numbers. But
yeah.
So yeah, read your Constitution. It's interesting. It's like, so that was pretty much the recap of the show in May without going into too much detail. I'm real big on the concept of restitution myself personally. Matter of fact, I'm going to use a little analogy, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times I like to put things in a very personal perspective. I think a lot of times as a whole, as a community, we lose that perspective. So I'm going to use the example of a teenage boy. I got a teenage son, and I find out that he broke the neighbor's window. And I'm like, okay. First thing I'm going to do is probably ask him why, right?
Right.
Right. And that can make a huge difference, I imagine, even in your position, that the why can make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a really big question that a lot of jurors want to ask too. Like, why did this happen? Why did this person do this? And sometimes at the end of the day, we just don't know why. sometimes we will never have the answer to that question, particularly when you're talking about a violent crime, something of that nature. We may never know why this person decided to take someone else's life, or why they decided to molest a child. We don't know why. But you're right, it is something that definitely drives our curiosity and makes a difference if you can know the why, as to understanding how that person maybe got to where they're at.
Right, right. And for minor cases, that probably is more available.
Sure.
For to why. So again, the case of the teenage boy, you know, he could respond, oh, I got bullied at school today and I was angry and I just picked up a rock and threw it. And I'm sorry, you know, compared to, let's say he says, my neighbor is black and I hate black people, so I broke his window. Well, you got a whole much more serious situation with your son if that was his answer, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But normally as a parent in a situation like that, most parents can say, okay, you're going to go to the neighbor, apologize, and then you're going to have to pay for the window.
Right.
And it might be through work, right?
Work it off, or go mow their lawn or something like that. Absolutely.
And you actually probably might even become friends with a neighbor, you know, and have a positive experience versus locking your son in the bathroom for 6 months. Right?
Well, probably not a good idea. I do not recommend that.
Yeah. I don't think that's even legal, is it?
I would guess no. That feels like kidnapping to me, but
but that's kind of what we do. You know, we say, okay, we're going to lock you up for 6 months. That your son is going to come out after 6 months angry.
Sure.
He's going to be angry. He's going to be angry at you, at the neighbor, life, you know, and he's probably going to go do something even worse. So that's why I'm big on restitution for minor things. So let's give people a chance to correct it in a positive way.
So we're talking about two different things. So legally speaking, when we talk about restitution within the criminal justice system, we are talking about an economic loss, and we're talking about making people whole. So there's a financial restitution aspect of it, but then there's also essentially community restitution. And that's making the community whole because your actions caused basically a tear in the fabric of society. And it's your responsibility to repair that. And sometimes that can be in the form of probation. Sometimes there are cases where people simply need to go to prison and be incarcerated. And then there's the opportunity for other alternative prosecution methods, like the diversion programs that we have at the county attorney's office.
And I'm so happy to hear that we have that here.
Yeah.
You know, right here in Cochise County.
Absolutely.
Because that's where we live and that's what we're concerned about, right here in Cochise County, not Los Angeles, not New York,
right?
You know, anywhere else, but right here. So I was so pleased to find out that we have those programs. And again, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing that with our audience. You might not need it today, and hopefully you don't need it in the next week or month, but you just never know. Sometimes we make a mistake.
Good people make bad mistakes all the time.
Yes, we do.
Bad choices all the time. I tell people, try to make better choices.
Yes. Been there and done that myself a few times without giving any details whatsoever. But it's very serious because if you don't have programs like that, you could actually cost somebody a lot of things in their life, you know, loss of job, loss of car, maybe even losing their house.
Absolutely. There are a lot of collateral consequences that go along with having a misdemeanor or a felony offense on your record. And felony offenses can often take years to resolve, and having that on your record can limit educational opportunities, career opportunities, housing opportunities. And so the diversion program helps alleviate that. So we started out with misdemeanor diversion programs. We started out with felony diversion programs.
Even for felonies?
Even for felonies.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes people don't realize what could be a felony. So for example.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, like you were talking about the broken window. Some windows might only be $100, but a big window on a business might cost over $1,000. And once you get over $1,000, now you're a felony.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Instead of a misdemeanor. And so people may not realize that. So when people make those decisions and they deserve a second chance, that's where the diversion programs come in. And so we started out in the county attorney's office with just the misdemeanor and felony diversion program. But Christina Watkins, she is the alternative prosecution director, coordinator, and she manages a staff. There's 2 other individuals, and she actually wrote a grant. So she got a grant from this Arizona Criminal Justice System Center, and for $500,000 to expand the programs.
Nice.
And she expanded it, and it now includes drug diversion for misdemeanors and felonies. And in 2020, she, along with Lori Zucco, who's now the county attorney, and several other attorneys and interested individuals in the county attorney's office, decided that we really saw a need for mental health diversion.
Oh, definitely, right.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about that a little bit on a show back in May, the GRACE program.
That's right.
Yeah, so specifically for people with mental health issues. And of course, my very first show, if my audience remembers, way back in April, we had a show about mental health. I had 2 experts as guests on that show, and we talked about how mental health actually affects everybody.
Absolutely.
To some degree.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, but people that have an issue, it could be depression, anxiety. We have a lot of people with PTSD out there.
Absolutely. Bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder. And Christina Watkins, she actually has a background in training in mental health. And so that's what kind of sparked the passion for developing the GRACE program, because we have this unfortunate cross between mental health and the criminal justice system. And I think that in this country, we just don't address mental health as well as we probably could.
I think everybody agrees with you on that. I mean, you hear that all. I even have a son that lives in. He's a psychologist and counselor that works at the University in Oklahoma, and he says that all the time. We just aren't addressing mental health issues enough.
I think people maybe a bit embarrassed about it, or don't want to talk about it, or they try to sweep it under the rug. And I think that's cultural, right? That's just how society is. But unfortunately, what that means is that we are finding a lot of individuals with mental health problems who are now in the criminal justice system, and we need to address that root cause. That's mental health. It's not their criminal behavior, it's getting them the help that they need. So that's where GRACE comes into play, is getting them help that they need and getting them a second chance, because there are a lot of people also who self-medicate with illicit drugs.
Yes, or alcohol.
Or alcohol,
Matter of fact, I won't mention his name, but I had a good friend, a veteran, and he was married, had a house, had a son with the wife, and then she had a son previously. And he was just very happy. But within 1 year, he lost his job on post. She decided to leave him, all within 1 year. And then losing a job, he was getting behind financially, and he started drinking.
Yeah.
And then he got a DUI. And then he couldn't drive. And it just snowballed, one thing after another. All this happened to him in a short time. And he ended up taking his own life,
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
And it was like, he needed help.
Yeah.
And, myself and some other friends tried to help him, but he needed professional help at that point.
And, here's the other thing. Unfortunately, we're in a very small rural community, and the reality is we just don't have the services that we need to offer to those individuals. It's
because it's money.
Right?
It's
absolutely,
all about money.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's sad, but it's true. It's all about money.
Yeah, you got to have money. You got to have health insurance, something like that. And so the program, it's more than just, okay, you get a slap on the wrist. You got to pay a monthly fee to be in the program. You got to do community service. It's also connecting those individuals with services. I know that Ms. Watkins' team has gotten people driver's licenses, because they've helped them facilitate that, because you can't do anything without an ID. They've helped facilitate getting guardians appointed or fiduciaries appointed, so that individuals with serious mental health issues can subsequently receive their Social Security checks, and those can be handled appropriately. And sometimes people need a guardianship because their mental health issues are so serious. They're not capable of functioning independently in the world.
Now, I'm going to assume that if somebody has a mental health issue and it is a danger to society,
so that's
probably
that's
a whole different program, I imagine.
Exactly. So that would be a traditional prosecution. At the end of the day, the program screens people, right? So there's a screening process that people would go through. The first step is there's a referral. That referral can come from defense attorneys. That referral can come from prosecutors. Sometimes the jail will tell us, hey, we think this person might fit. Sometimes the hospital, Canyon Vista, will let us know.
Okay.
And so we get a referral to the program, and then we take that individual and they're screened. We look at their criminal history. Do they have any criminal history that indicates violence? What does that look like? Are they appropriate for the program? Are they willing to accept responsibility for what they did? Because that's an important part of the repentance and going forward. And then after the screening is done, victims are contacted, because if victims are involved, then they have the right under the Arizona Constitution. It's called the Victims' Bill of Rights. Everybody should read it. But the Victims' Bill of Rights allows them to have input
Really?
into any kind of, well, not just diversion, but also plea bargaining. And so
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the crime was done to you, so you have a voice.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's excellent.
The Victims' Bill of Rights protects that. Well, you should read it. At the end of the day, it's the prosecutor's decision what happens to the case, but we do listen to victims. And sometimes it's a difficult decision to go against what a victim's wishes are, but sometimes that's just how it works out with the facts of the case. So in realizing that victims have input, and then financial restitution, that, economic loss, that is always a part of our diversion programs. So someone has to pay that restitution before they can be released. And then once they've done what the diversion program needs, then their cases are dismissed generally without prejudice, meaning they can't be refiled against you.
Wow. Okay. I just want to stop. And if you just joined us on the radio, this is Cool 104.1, Issues with Ishoy. I'm your host, Robert Ishoy, and we are having a second show about the court systems and the justice system right here in Cochise County. This second show, I have a diversion attorney is your title, right? Give me your title again.
Well, I mean, my title is Deputy County Attorney. I handle extraditions. I also handle the diversion programs, and I handle special victims felony offenses.
And Trish, I can call you Trish.
Call me Trish, please.
Trish Driggs. So if you just joined us, and I also want to put a plug in for our sponsor, Ruby's Divine Chocolates. Thank you very much for sponsoring the show. And right out on Highway 92, if you've never been there, gourmet chocolates, other gourmet foods, and that's our sponsor. So anyway, back to the show. I'm learning a lot already. So we kind of talked about the GRACE program. What you said there's 5 of them.
Yeah, so
let's go over another one.
Okay, so we have misdemeanor, and misdemeanor is broken into just your general crimes, drug crimes, and then we have misdemeanor, the GRACE program, which is mental health. So regular misdemeanor or felony diversion is just for any crime. But in misdemeanor and felony, we also have specific drug diversion. And the reason for that is we want to address the illicit drug problem instead of incarcerating that drug problem. Obviously, there are sales of illicit drugs, and those cases are more than likely not going to qualify.
You're talking about users more.
I'm talking about users personal use. Yeah. If you're out there selling fentanyl, you're out there selling methamphetamine, there are going to be consequences. But if you're a user,
goodness. I'm not. If you think I'm easy on crime, I'm not. When serious crimes, I want to penalize, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about people that make a mistake, a first-time offender, or people that have a good record.
Or even if it's more than their first time, if we look at their criminal history and it's telling us that, look, this person has a drug problem. Maybe they've never been connected to the right resources. Maybe they're having something else going on in their life, and maybe they need some kind of counseling to help them overcome their addiction. Maybe they need an inpatient program. sometimes someone will get arrested, they'll be in the county jail, and the program will require that they stay in the county jail until we can find placement with an inpatient program. And Ms. Watkins' team does that along with the Cochise County Jail. They work together to try to find appropriate placement for individuals who need help.
Okay.
But sometimes people, they just get caught up because, like you were saying earlier, depression, alcohol, you lose your job, something.
Yeah, right.
And
and you're
your
not
life can fall
thinking straight
apart.
when you go,
Yeah.
or even emotionally, like if you're going through a divorce, back in my 20s, I went through a divorce and I wasn't thinking right half the time, and that's when I got into some trouble because, maybe you're out late at night and maybe, you're drinking or,
Yeah.
and you're not thinking clear and you make stupid mistakes. So people go through those periods in their life where they just need help more than anything. And that's why we're really here. And I think it's important as a community to realize it is a community effort. You've already mentioned that you work with the hospitals, the police department, probably some nonprofits, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. So we work with a lot of the local mental health organizations. There's CBIS. We work with them. There's also places like Hoops House, and it used to be called the Women's Transition Program. So we work with community resources to try to connect people that way as well, because a lot of people don't realize you can have one fentanyl pill. That's a felony. And so we want to help people not only understand that, but also get to the root cause of that addiction so that they can live a meaningful life and be able to engage with a clear head.
And now we're telling everybody in Cochise County about this. So, I mean, if you maybe it's not you, but maybe you have a friend or a family member that is in this kind of situation, and you could advise them now, hey, you need help. There are programs in Cochise County that can help you.
There are.
And they could direct them to the right place.
Absolutely. And that's
excuse me.
That's the great thing, is that it is a collaborative effort. And so one thing that we do when we were talking about the mental health program, GRACE, the mental health diversion, we coordinate with law enforcement because sometimes those individuals might get in trouble again. And, maybe it's something as simple as walking down Fry Boulevard nude.
Right.
That happens, right?
Right.
And so law enforcement makes a contact with them, and then they are aware that this person is in our mental health program. And so it helps them respond better because they're going to understand that individual that they're getting the call for is going through something.
Right. And plus you're informing the police officers you probably don't have a dangerous situation here,
right.
And which helps them do their job the right way as well.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's a real community effort. You can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And like you said, there are certainly people with mental health issues that aren't going to qualify when they commit violent offenses. There are homicides that involve individuals with mental health issues, and those just aren't going to qualify because at the end of the day, we have to protect our community. But those get handled through the traditional criminal justice program, through traditional prosecution, and those aren't going to be programs that go through any of the diversion programs. We also have a traffic diversion program. A lot of people don't realize, but we have I-10 running through the county, and we get a lot of truckers, and they might run the port or something like that, and we can offer traffic diversion so that they can maintain their license and not have to risk their job and their livelihood.
Yeah. Or they're pushing it and they're not following their log.
Right. Absolutely.
I actually used to do that when I was corporate security. I did DOT regulations as well. So they can get in a lot of trouble, and it could cost them their job, their livelihood. But sometimes they're under pressure. I mean, a lot of people don't realize truckers are sometimes put under pressure to bend the rules, you know what I mean?
Yeah, get your load where it needs to go in time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And okay, you're past the time that you're supposed to go to sleep, or you're fudging on your log and stuff like that. So yeah, it could really cost somebody, and we need those truckers.
We absolutely do. Truckers are the backbone of America for sure.
You're not going to have anything on the shelves if you don't have truckers.
That's right.
That's right. If they ever quit coming, the shelves would be empty probably within 3 days.
Oh, easily, if not less. I have family members that are truck drivers, and it's a tough job, but they keep the economy going.
Yeah. So this is fabulous. And again, thank you so much for coming here. There are so many programs here in Cochise County. I imagine it's got to be challenging for you in some senses, because you probably see those people that are beyond help, and then rewarding when you are able to help somebody that needs it and deserves it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Honestly, I had someone that I referred to the diversion program. I looked at their criminal history. It was a case where I felt like that individual was probably just having a bad day. And having a bad day, mental health problems, they don't excuse the crime, but they explain how we got there.
Right.
And they help understand the why.
The why.
That's right. And so when I looked at that case and I thought, oh gosh, this is a young guy. He made a mistake. We talked to the victim. The victim was okay putting that person in diversion. We got them counseling. We got them treatment. And the case was dismissed, which meant that that individual was able to go on and get scholarships to go to school. Wow. And that's so rewarding to see that outcome.
Right.
Unfortunately, sometimes we have situations where we put someone into a diversion program. I had a very heartbreaking situation where I put an individual who I really felt just needed another chance in the program. And he subsequently committed several other felony offenses. And so his case had to be resumed with traditional prosecution. Yeah. And it broke my heart because I just thought, I really wanted you to take that chance and do something good with it. And so it's hard when you have to return a case to traditional prosecution, but sometimes it has to be done. Sometimes the diversion program or the grace program is just not an option for some people.
We've all made those mistakes trying to read people. I mean, when I was in the Army, I was a human intelligence, so an interrogator.
Oh, okay, there
so
you go.
I consider myself a professional at reading people. And then I did corporate security, where I did a lot of interviews, not interrogations, in the corporate world. And you run across those people that give you a story and you fall for it, even when you're a professional, and you're like, and then they disappoint you, and you kind of kick yourself, and it's like, well, why did I fall for that? You know, but it happens.
So Monica McCall and Christina Watkins, they interview every single person. Nobody gets into the program, any of the diversion programs, without interviewing them. And they have a pretty good BS meter.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good at reading people. But also they check and they follow up with people.
Right.
So
that's the key, I think.
They'll go, I mean, I've seen them go all the way to Phoenix, Flagstaff, to check on some of the individuals that are in diversion. And another important thing is making sure that people have a support system. So we've had people that get into the diversion program. They're not from Cochise County. They're not even from Arizona. Maybe they're from Florida. I had a case where there was an individual who had a psychotic break and was living on the East Coast. That's where his family was, his support system was. We got him connected to resources there. We were able to get him back to his parents, where he had the resources and the family support to be able to continue. And so it's important that people check in, and if they don't, then Miss Watkins or Miss McCall, they also do site visits with people.
Are you even out of state?
Not out of state.
Okay.
No, that's way too much money.
Yeah.
Speaking of money, though, I did want to tell you the program. First, we have to thank the County Board of Supervisors because they've supported our diversion programs at the County Attorney's Office, and that has allowed for all this to happen. But on top of that, these programs have saved the county taxpayers nearly $4 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because if we didn't have the GRACE program, the mental health diversion program, those individuals would be going through a process called Rule 11. And I'm going to explain that because legal stuff, right? So Rule 11 is a process to determine whether someone is competent to stand trial or not competent.
Okay.
That requires a psychological evaluation. That requires the jail to transport that person to that evaluation. That requires possibly a second opinion. And if they are found not competent to stand trial, they go through a restoration program, which then costs the county taxpayers even more money. So through the GRACE program, we've been able to say, this person is probably someone who might go through this competency type hearing, and we can save the county money. We believe that we can help them get where they need to be with the GRACE program. And so we save all of that money in the restoration program, the evaluations, all of that, and the person's connected to resources instead of prosecuted.
It's all very expensive.
Absolutely.
Going to prison is expensive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that costs a lot of money to society.
Like $1 for a cup of noodles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even inmates' families are, paying for phone calls and paying for commissary and all that. It is very pricey.
And again, my mind goes back to that, personal view on things. And I think of, I'll use the example, a woman that gets raped, and then you find the guy found guilty, hands down. And it's like you go back to the woman and say, okay, well, you got to pay us $100 a month. What? I'm the victim. Well, yeah, but we got to pay for the guards and the jail and all that. And people don't think about it, but that's what we do in a sense. We all have to pay for that, for those people that committed terrible crimes, and they're in jail for a very long time. And I'm sure most people are like, well, I'll pay for the bullet. How about that? I'll pay.
Well, there are, luckily, there are only very few crimes that are, capital or death penalty eligible, because some people would like most crimes to be eligible, and they aren't. But, it's nice to know that our programs are saving money where we can. We're helping connect those people that we can. We have a 90% success rate with our diversion programs. That means 90% of the people that we take into our diversion programs, they do not commit other crimes or offenses. They are not returned to traditional prosecution. Right. No recidivism.
The word.
Recidivism. Yeah.
Yes.
Fancy word to say commit another crime.
Yes.
Keep doing it.
But in prison, statistically, 80% people end up back.
Well, sure. So, think about being incarcerated. Your life is completely changed. You may have lost your house. You've lost your job.
Right.
And so you get out with nothing. You get out with an ID and the clothes you probably went in there with.
Yeah. And probably learn things that you don't want to learn.
Right. How to be a better criminal. Right.
Right. Oh, you ever thought about doing this?
And unfortunately, a lot of inmates who don't have family support and a good support system, they're at risk of failing and repeating criminal activity, and of it escalating. Now, sometimes there are people who get incarcerated, they come out, they make the best of that time, and they do better. In fact, I had someone that I prosecuted, and he came back to me. He came into court and said, "Oh, Miss Driggs," and I said, "What are you doing here? You got another case?" And he said, "No, I wanted to let you know that saved my life. Sending me to prison saved my life, and now I'm a peer-to-peer counselor."
And I think you said a key word, family.
Yeah.
If you have family, that can make a difference in everything. If you do make a mistake, but you have family to help you when you do get out and support you and get back on your feet versus stepping out alone.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, my son, the one at Oklahoma University, used to run he was a counselor at a private place for mentally ill youth. Mm-hmm. And he said when they turned 18, they had to let them go by law. They
Yep.
And he said 9 times out of 10, there was nobody waiting for him.
Yeah.
And they literally had to release him onto the street, knowing that probably within 24, 48 hours, they're going to get arrested.
Right.
Because there was nobody there to pick him up. And it was just like, just shocking that happens, but they had no choice. By law, they have to let them go.
And whether it's the family we choose or whether it's the family that we are biologically given, people need a good support system. And that's what really helps the diversion program and just anybody in general coming out of incarceration. One more thing on incarceration. If you get incarcerated, you're convicted of a felony offense or a misdemeanor. Just recently, I think it was probably 3 years ago, the state legislature passed a law. And I'm gonna list this because I think it's important. Write it down. If you have felony convictions, please write this down. Arizona Revised Statute 13911. That allows, that allows for your criminal conviction to be sealed. That means it is sealed so that it won't affect your credit. It won't affect your employment. It won't affect your education. Now, there are requirements, right? There's a waiting period, and it only applies to, it doesn't apply to some offenses, right? Like if we're talking about an offense involving a sexual crime against children, those cannot be sealed or set aside.
No, we don't want those.
Right. But other offenses, like let's say you committed burglary, drug offense, something of that nature, you successfully complete your program of probation, or you come out of incarceration, depending on the seriousness of the offense. There's a waiting period, and then you can file an application, and it's free to file with the courts to get that sealed and set aside so that you won't have the as detrimental an impact on your life. So I think that's important for people to know too, because not everybody is going to qualify for the diversion programs.
Yep. You know, I can't help it. I'm an historian. And when I would talk about family, I think ancient Rome, a lot of people don't realize this. Of course, it was a very patriotic society.
Mm-hmm.
So a father was actually responsible for his children. So if one of his children committed a crime, the father would be charged as well.
Sure.
Because you were the father. So you should have done your job and made sure you raised your children right. So you could be charged with the same crime. However, they allowed the father to discipline their children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, to an extreme.
Probably a little more than corporal punishment, right?
Actually, you could take their life if you felt kind of like that honor killing that you hear about. But it's kind of but it just made me think about how important family is. And back then, in that society in ancient Rome, that's how important it was. Your family was everything, and if you're not doing the right thing as a family, it could cost the whole family.
Oh, Robert, we could have a whole nother episode talking about how the cases that I see where those defendants don't have family support or issues or trauma in their upbringing that led them to where they are today. I mean, that could be a whole nother hour conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that sad though?
It is. It's very sad. It's very sad because a lot of times you do see that those who are wrapped up in the criminal justice system don't have a great support system. They didn't have a good upbringing. And again, it's not an excuse. It's not. Mm-hmm. Lots of people have terrible upbringings and no family support, and they don't commit crimes. But it's an explanation and a way of understanding how this person might have got here.
Right.
That why.
Yep, that why, which I'm a big believer in. So there you are. I mean, right here in Cochise County, we have some excellent programs, diversion programs are called, that can help people that make a mistake, that deserve a second chance or maybe even a third chance, right?
Absolutely.
Versus we're not going to use those diversion programs for people that have committed serious crimes, especially against persons.
Right.
They're going to get punished.
Yes.
And that's what we want. We get them off the street.
We have to draw a line. The county attorney's office, we are ultimately responsible for keeping the community safe. So the programs are individualized, they're tailored to that individual's needs, and those people are individually assessed to determine if they're appropriate. So not everybody's going to be appropriate. But we work with every defense attorney. We work with public defenders. We work with private attorneys. We even work on misdemeanor diversion cases with people who aren't represented by attorneys, because you shouldn't have to have an attorney just to get access to these programs. Everybody has access to these programs.
And it's kind of a reminder to us as individuals, as family members and friends, that if our county and even the federal government, I understand in 2008 they passed the First Step Act, which is also meant to do some criminal justice reform and give people less sentences and more chances to go through a program.
Sure.
So our federal government has passed those laws. Our county has all kinds of programs. So we as individuals, we should stop and think, even if you have a family member that makes a mistake, don't write them off.
No. Well,
they need your help.
Yeah.
Don't write them off. Yeah. And their support.
Obviously, there's a line, right? Obviously, there's some kind of line to, I've done it so many times, I've bailed them out so many times.
Sure.
And at that point, you can probably only give emotional support. And maybe for your own mental sanity, you can't, and you do have to write them off. But let's work hard to try to get to the root cause of the problem before we get to that point, because people make mistakes, and at the end of the day, good people make bad mistakes and bad decisions, and it doesn't mean that your family's going to stop loving you. It just means they don't condone what you did.
Right. And
so it's important to have that support, but unfortunately, so many people don't.
Well, there's a big difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can understand why people did something. Doesn't mean you have to sympathize with them.
Yeah.
So, and don't go back to the Roman times or the old school idea where, you're just going to take matters in your own hand.
Right. No vigilante justice.
Right.
None of that. I know that we are the Wild West and we have Tombstone, but no vigilante justice.
I have to admit, even at 67 years old, I got kind of that old school mentality sometimes. You No, let the courts handle it
Yes.
legally. Otherwise, you're going to end up in worse trouble than the other person.
Oh yeah, no, I've had cases where someone thought that they were going to go collect a debt, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like the whole mob, I'm going to break your leg type thing. You're the one who's going to be in trouble,
Right,
not
right.
the person who owes you
Yeah.
money. You.
So don't make those
Yeah.
mistakes. We're out of the old west.
Yeah.
We can't do that anymore. But this is very fascinating. I hope my audience got a lot out of this between the two shows.
Yeah, it's important to know the criminal justice system. Individuals that do jury duty or grand jury always tell me how much they learned. You know, this is one of the programs, you know, the alternative prosecution. But like you were saying, it's not for serious crimes. It's not for serious felony offenses. And not everybody's going to qualify. But at least we can start here. Right. And the bonus, we get to save the county money.
Right. And that's a big bonus.
It is. It is.
And that's what we're concerned about. What's going on right here in Cochise County. Every county is going to be different in the state. Every state's going to be different. And we can't change the world, but we can make a difference right here in Cochise County. And I am genuinely pleased to hear that our county courts and our county supervisors, I imagine, are all supporting this.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's a big thing. I brought up the last show. I think I brought it up before. How many people even know the names of your county supervisor? Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and we have to go to them every year and ask for funding. And so every year we have to say, we want to pay the salaries of these individuals that are running this program. So we have to request it. And they've been very supportive in giving us that. And we're very lucky that we do have that support from the County Board of Supervisors. But like you were mentioning earlier, it's the community as a whole. I know that sometimes there are officers that may not like that someone's going into the diversion program. We hear a little grumbling because they're the ones who have to deal with individuals on the streets. But overall, we make a bigger difference if we can solve the problem instead of just locking it away.
Yeah. So again, this is Cool 104.1 with Issues with Ishoy. Your host, Robert Ishoy, my guest, Trish.
Just call me Trish.
Driggs. And go ahead and do your title again.
Deputy County Attorney.
Deputy County Attorney. And so grateful that you could join us and give us the nitty-gritty of how these programs work. She deals with it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the expert.
Well, thanks for having us. I think
you.
It's so important for people to understand because I'm the attorney on the other end that deals with any kind of legal issues that come up through the program. And we're just so glad that people are interested in getting the word out. And it's a great program. And thank you for having us on.
And thank you for listening to Issues with Ishoy. We are currently on every Sunday, first Sunday of every month, 8 o'clock in the morning on radio. Then later that Sunday, you can watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, on Cool FM Live. So if you missed the radio show, you can watch the podcast, follow it up later that day. And don't forget our sponsor, Ruby's Divine Chocolates, out on Highway 92, the best gourmet chocolates in Arizona. I'll say that.
That's fantastic.
Okay. So if you haven't been out there, go check it out. And that's all we have for today. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.